So in this video, along with my colleague and friend Michelle, we do a deep dive discussion into Google Ads for lawyers in the legal niche. The reason why we're covering this particular topic is that having worked with lawyers in the past, I found that there's a lot of common mistakes and big mistakes that lawyers make when they do Google advertising that ends up wasting them a lot of money. So within these 40 minutes, we talk about a lot of different things from budget expectations for various niches, whether you're in bankruptcy law, personal injury, criminal law, and so on and so forth. We talk about common mistakes that legal practices make with Google advertising and why you're wasting money. And then we talk about ways that you can improve performance from landing pages to campaign management as well. So we're definitely squeezing in a lot of information within these next 40 minutes. I hope you get a lot of value out of it. If at the end of the video you feel like you need professional management from your Google Ads, I'll leave my information in the description below. I've been doing Google Ads for about 8 years now across many different service-based businesses, not just legal. We've done everything from financial to tech startup to B2B, as well as local services. So with that said, I'll let the video begin, and here we go.
Welcome back to the Google Ads Lead Gen Show. My name is Michelle Kopp from Level 28 Media.
And my name is Dean Hua from Sachi Studio.
And in today's podcast video episode, we're going to be diving deep into the legal niche for Google Ads lead generation. So if you're a lawyer and you're looking for some tips on how to best leverage Google Ads for your lead generation to get more retained clients in that sign with you, this is definitely the episode to watch. So let's go ahead and dive in here. You want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So I guess we'll start with just a basic overview of what you need to know. Maybe these are things that legal clients don't always understand or think about when heading into paid search. I think the first one, it sounds kind of obvious, but it's not always obvious having worked with legal clients, but budget range. What are your comments on budget range?
Yeah, so I've actually spoken with a lot of different legal prospects, any ranging from different offering different services like divorce, services, so family law, bankruptcy, criminal. And what I found is a lot of them, they don't realize that, the starting budget is it needs to be a certain amount in order to even be competitive in the market. Some of them just think it's like, okay, $300 a month and they're going to get something. But really what dictates it is the market, what the competition is spending. And then to even be in that space, you need to be somewhere in the range of your competition. So looking at your average cost per click, and, backing out some, forecast based on that. In terms of a minimum ad budget, that really just depends on the niche that you serve, the industry. So whether PI, personal injury, is going to be the most expensive, but remember your return on investment can be in the millions. But in terms of, the other areas, we have to use the Google Keyword Planner and the area that you want to target in order to come up with a really good idea of what your average budget should be. I would say that a good starting budget, if you're in a really, really small, like tight radius, is probably going to be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month.
For
But
personal injury?
no, just across the board in general.
Okay.
So but again, that's just going to vary based off of the research. So I'm just giving a blanket overall. Like if you can't even stomach spending a few $1,000s as a lawyer on Google PPC, don't even bother with, even trying.
Do you want to give, I guess I'll start off. Do you want to give like specific ranges? Based on my experience, I'll give some ranges and you may disagree based on
Okay.
what you've done. I would say personal injury in terms of ad spend a month. And I'm assuming mid-market or higher. So we'll just start with mid-markets. I would say 10K a month. Um, what else? There's family law. I think you can get away with probably 3 to 4K based on what I've seen. DUI, I would say I feel comfortable with like 3 to 5K Although I've seen some people do 2K. So those are some examples. Like, would you agree or disagree? Like, what sort of numbers have you seen?
I would say if we're looking at the ranges that you're giving, PI is definitely going to be the most expensive. In Los Angeles, where I am, I've seen budgets starting at 15 to 25K. So,
Hmm.
because an average click for, let's say, personal injury attorney in Los Angeles can be as high as $1,000, which is which is a lot. So, in order to even be competitive, you need to be funding that much. So, I'd say in terms of the ranges that you're giving, it's definitely in the definitely aligning with that, but it's always just going to depend on the market and how competitive it is. For bankruptcy, I've seen it anywhere from you could probably get away with from like 2,000 up to 10,000. So it is a pretty wide range. But it just depends on how competitive the market is.
Yeah, I think you also have to work in lifetime value of the client as well. I've met and I've seen this across many different service-based businesses. Some businesses, they just undercharge.
Mm-hmm.
So when you undercharge, it makes it much harder for us to try to make a profit. But obviously, if you can charge a premium, that makes my life a lot easier as well.
Mm-hmm.
Something else I want to touch on is something I call transactional versus relationship oriented approaches or services. So this really matters a lot in terms of conversions. I'll give you an example. I define a transaction type legal service as something like DUI. Like you just got a DUI and you need a DUI lawyer. So when it's very transactional oriented, what that means is that in terms of traffic behavior is that someone does a search for a DUI lawyer near me and they find your website and they'll probably just pick up the phone and call, right? Without doing any other types of research. Whereas a relationship oriented legal service could be a family lawyer. Why? Why is it more relationship oriented? Well, because it's a very personal, intimate thing that someone's going through right now with their family. It could be divorce. Uh,
Custody.
it could be a
Yeah.
custody battle, which is obviously very tough. So because it's much more stressful on the client, they're going to take more time trying to figure out if you're the right guy or girl to hire for their needs. So because they take more time, they may not convert on the initial visit to the landing page. They may go to Google My Business and look at your reviews. They'll probably take a look at several other lawyers as well. They may even call you up on the first call, but they still have to think about it and come back 1 week later. So that's something to understand in terms of transactional versus relationship oriented legal services.
I fully agree. I'd say too that just yeah, keep in mind that the customer journey is going to be different for everyone. Some people are going to want to take their time to do their research. With bankruptcy though, it really does depend. Like if you're in the bankruptcy niche, sometimes it's like a 911 emergency. Someone just got, served and they're getting sued by their creditors and they're freaking out and they need a bankruptcy attorney right away. Sometimes they're just looking for a way to wipe away the debt, but then there's no hard deadline that's pushing them. So that one is up in the air. Personal injury too, it just depends on how bad the situation is. If there was like a wrongful death or like a dog bite or something that was really serious, then maybe they would move faster. But if it was just like a minor you fender bender and they're just trying to like get something from the insurance, then maybe they're just gonna take their time to find the attorney that is going to give them the most in terms of the payout.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's move on to our next talking points. Anything unique you want to talk about for each legal niche?
I would say from my experience working with bankruptcy, I'm not so sure about some of the other niches, but some keywords can trigger Google in terms of limited approval. So just be aware, like the word debt, Google hates that word. Like because there's a lot of companies that offer like debt consolidation, debt wipeout services that are not bankruptcy attorneys, and they tend to prey on these people that keep falling into debt over and over and over again. So Google's really trying to crack down on people like that. Even though debt attorneys, they have or bankruptcy attorneys are also known as debt attorneys too. They have license to help people with their debt issues. But the problem is saying the word debt will also limit you in terms of, having your ads being able to show. So just be aware that there are certain words that can trigger in Google. And even if, no matter what, even if you try to get Google to remove that, just that's just the nature of the industry and you can't get out of it. So you also have to get creative too on the types of keywords that you're going after and not just going after keywords that are going to have limited approval.
So do you think that sort of penalty applies to ad copy and landing page or just ad copy? Because from my understanding, you can definitely bid on those keywords, but whether or not you want to talk about those keywords in the ad copy or landing page is something completely different.
You can bid on the keywords, and yes, it is on the landing page and in your ad copy. So that's why what I've tried to do, playing around, is like instead of saying debt, say something about something about like not having a lot of money, or saying something about like no more money problems or something like that. That kind of like relates to debt without actually saying the word debt.
Yeah, yeah. Or you can have like imagery, like stock photo imagery that implies that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I had a tax debt client, and a tax relief client, and they are not in the legal niche, but just because they did tax relief, the word relief was something that also triggered within Google. So I know that this is kind of going a little bit off topic, but it relates to certain words getting triggered in Google, that was going to limit your ads to appear. So there's ways of skirting around it to get your ads to appear without actually saying those words.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So next talking point, let's talk about keyword selection. So I'll go first and then you can just piggyback off of anything I say. I think you really have to do your due diligence on keyword selection, both positive and negative. I'll talk positive keywords first, or just keywords in general. No one says positive keywords. Um, the biggest trap that I see, not just agencies make, but even do-it-yourselfers, is they go too broad with their keywords. So they may do a broad match on bankruptcy attorney, and it's going to attract all sorts of search terms that may not be relevant to your legal service. Conversely, you can do phrase match and exact match and kind of pin or like hone in on that, but that may heavily restrict your search traffic as well, and you may not get enough volume. Um, that's the first mistake that I see a lot with a lot of people. And I think at the end of the day, your best teacher is just simply running a campaign and taking a look at the search query report, because you would be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised by what sort of search terms people are using to find you. And if you see search terms that people are using to find you and you're not bidding on it, then obviously add it to your campaign structure. What sort of thoughts do you have on this?
Yeah, so I agree. I've audited bankruptcy attorney accounts where they're using broad match on bankruptcy attorney and it's matching to divorce attorney, family law attorney. So it's interesting how Google's really trying to push the whole broad match thing, but it still doesn't know the difference between the different nuances and the different areas of law. A divorce lawyer is completely different from a bankruptcy lawyer. And that was a really big mistake that I noticed. And on top of that, it's like not even paying attention to put in the negative keywords to make sure that they don't come out. Another thing too, with phrase match, you have to be very careful because phrase match now is acting more like broad match in that it's going to also serve your ad when someone is searching for a competitor. So if your name is Tom Green and you do bankruptcy law services and you're just and you have bankruptcy law in phrase match, it could match you to Marcia Smith, who's also a bankruptcy attorney right down the street. So it's pretty crazy how Google and phrase match used to be just you have to have the exact keywords in that order, but now it's like, okay, we're just going to take anyone in your area that's offering a similar service and just drop them in. And when someone's looking for that service, we're gonna try to get you to appear for it. So just be very careful. If you don't want that to happen in terms of appearing for competitors, or paying for competitors, then you definitely need to be watching your search terms report.
Yeah, I would say to add on to that, this is where it helps to, and this is kind of where I differentiate myself from other agencies. It helps to have a really well cultivated negative keyword library and upload that before the campaign starts, not after the campaign starts. A lot of
Yeah.
times, most agencies, what they do is they let the campaign start running and they'll collect data for 1 or 2 months. They look for those negative keywords and then they upload it to their library.
Yeah, that's too
Um, yeah, it's also very wasteful because in some industries, bad search terms can make up 50% of your ad spend. So if you're spending $10,000 a month, that means theoretically you could be wasting $5,000 a month. I'm sure we can both agree that you'd rather have that 5K go back towards attracting relevant searches. So what I do is, again, I have a negative keyword library broken down into certain buckets, and I upload that before the campaign starts. So for example, I may have a bucket of negative keywords called informational searches. So this could be like how to do something, or
much.
where or what is the cost of, blah, blah, blah. I may have a bucket for employment related keywords. So this could be jobs related, apprentice, internship, et cetera, et cetera. I also go the extra mile depending on the niche. What we do is we'll scrape the local Google Maps for lawyers near me within
Yeah.
that category, and then we upload that into another bucket, negative branded searches, and that's uploaded to the campaign before everything starts. So that way we don't attract competitors.
Yeah, so that's a great pro tip. Unfortunately, you probably won't be able to capture everyone. So Google will
Yeah.
probably find some more for you, but that's a really good way to start and be proactive. Another thing that you can do in terms of your negative keyword list is have different industries that you don't serve. So if you are a bankruptcy attorney, you might want to put personal injury, criminal, family law, as negative keywords so that you won't be even appearing for those, in general. So those are good ways to be proactive about setting up your account because, as we talked about with the very first talking point, it is very expensive. So if there's anything that we can do to like mitigate that and cut the learning time, then putting a negative keyword list in place ahead of time is going to be key to keeping your costs down as much as you can.
Okay. What's next?
The next topic is pro tips for this industry. So let's talk about landing pages then. Is there anything that comes to mind in terms of like what makes a really great landing page for a legal service or a lawyer?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things. This can definitely be like a 1 hour segment on legal landing pages, but we don't have another hour. So I'll just highlight some big picture stuff. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of legal landing pages make is they are too, for lack of a better word, I guess, too code or sterile in the way they portray themselves. So what I mean by this is they use a lot of stock photos, and they don't have images of the legal team or the personal lawyer or their office setup. So that's number one. Just use personal imagery. Hire a commercial photographer.
Brand
If you don't have
photography.
the budget, it's
Mhm.
2023. We all have really good smartphones. Most of our phones act as good cameras. So, take some photos of the team and upload that. I'd rather have something better than nothing at all. Good reviews really helps a lot. I know this can be tough in certain industries, such as criminal law, where your criminal attorney doesn't want to give a review.
Bankruptcy too. Yeah,
Yeah,
clients don't want to
yeah,
reveal that.
they don't.
Divorce too. Who wants to go and
Yeah.
publicly talk about, a child custody battle and all that? So,
Yeah, I one of my first marketing jobs way back in the day was working as a marketing manager for a personal injury law firm, and they would often complain like how we just couldn't get reviews. So it was definitely a very difficult dilemma to be in. But if you can get more reviews, what else? I would say speak to facts and figures. So, for example, if you're a criminal defense attorney, you could speak to how you've won more than $100 million in settlements for your clients. That really says a lot more than, hey, we're an excellent criminal defense team. So speak to facts and figures when possible. Nowadays, with other clients, I haven't taken on a legal client in a while, but what I want to do more of is actually do what I refer to as podcast interview videos and put that on the landing page. And what that means is that, and I've seen this work for other industries, so this is why I want to do more of it. I sit down with my client and we act as if we're actually on a podcast interview, kind of like right now. And I just ask them a series of questions that I think their perspective client might be interested in. And so we go through those series of questions. That's maybe 10, 20 minutes. We go through the video editing process, probably cut it down to about 10 minutes because I think that's the amount of time someone's willing to watch for a video on a landing page. And then we upload that and embed it on the landing page. So the reason why I do that is even really good agencies, they've kind of maxed out on the landing page in terms of like best practices, right? We've done everything correctly, but we want to squeeze out just a little bit more from our traffic. And I think that could help a lot. Admittedly, there's a lot of people, when I say people, I mean website traffic, who will not watch the video. And that's okay. You're not going to get everyone to watch the video. But the people who do watch the video are the ones who are on the fence. And that may mean the difference between an extra, 10, 100,000 or extra $1 million per month, depending on what you're doing, or you may not get that at all. So that's something to consider. And it's pretty low cost as well. You don't necessarily have to hire an expensive video production team to come into your office, pay them to set up lighting and having a good microphone and everything. It could just be something like this, where you're interviewing the client, upload it, and then boom, you're done.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think one thing that I would add to that is on top of what you were saying with like a lot of these landing pages and websites being a little bit sterile. I think when it comes to attorneys, a lot of people tend to be very apprehensive about working with attorneys. So I think it's really important to humanize yourself. And I think that's what's really going to set you apart from other people. So instead of just talking about like, oh, I graduated in 1995 with, a JD and this and this.
What lawyer
And
has that? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So instead of just, going with that typical summary, I think bringing people into your life a little bit and sharing a little bit more about who you are, what your hobbies are, and stuff like that will allow you to look more human to your clients and allow people to align with you better. Because I think what happens is with a lot of people that they get very intimidated to talk to attorneys because they think attorneys are way up here and they're down here, and then they're like afraid of saying things. So I think what really helps in terms of getting people to open up and want to share more and want to do business with you is sharing more about a little bit more about your personal life and making yourself look more human rather than someone that's like untouchable. Would you agree with me on that? Like,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you really I like your word humanize. I think that speaks loudly in terms of like this industry where sometimes they don't, and to their fault. Lawyers like to kind of elevate themselves more than some of the other professions, for better or for worse. So I think humanize is a good word. Um, some of the, I guess, tropes within this industry for in terms of landing pages is like, the legal team with their arms crossed as you take photos, right? Or something like that. So I would say just do your best to humanize it, and I think videos does a good job of that.
exactly, exactly. Because when you with the video, then people could see exactly how you talk, and if you are someone that they could get along with. One of my bankruptcy clients, he what he does is he actually shares like family photos on his website, and he talks about like his values and how his family is like number one for him, and he shows pictures of his kids, and it just melts my heart when I see that, and it just makes him look like he's a normal person and he's not this like untouchable person that like you can't relate to or you can't you can't really work with.
Yeah, that's really smart on your client there. I mean, I would love to, in terms of CRO, conversion rate optimization practices, I'd love to see a split test between a landing page where you just show stock photos and then a landing page where you show images of like his family. I'd be curious as to what sort of conversion rates you would see for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the
Yeah,
family one would do pretty well.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. So the next item, was there the next one you wanted to point out?
Let's see here. We have the follow-up process.
Yes.
So I think it kind of goes without saying, but I'm going to say anyway, intake is really, 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 really important for this industry. I have met legal practices where they have crappy intake, and then we get blamed for why leads aren't converting when it's their fault. And I've seen clients who have excellent intake, pick up the phone, and not don't just pick up the phone, but the person who's handling the phone knows how to handle the entire process from A to Z. They know how to pre-qualify, they know how to set up correctly, they know how to be courteous to the client, who, quite frankly, is in a very nervous state a lot of times, depending on the legal situation. So I think intake, again, it sounds really obvious, but it's really important. If you have really bad intake, be honest about it and maybe don't consider paid search, because certain industries, such as DUI, such as criminal defense, very, very, very competitive, and it's going to hurt you quite badly if you don't have good intake.
Yeah, I fully agree. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with attorneys that don't have a good process or system in place, and then after like 2 3 months, they're out of there because they don't have someone that's ready and available to answer the phone every time a potential client is trying to call and try to schedule a free consultation or whatever, or talk about what they need in terms of services. So that's a really big downer. And another thing too is you need to understand that, just like what we talked about earlier, that first call is not going to convert right away. So a really good thing to have in place is some type of callback system, a CRM, a way to text your clients, a way to consistently email them, and just stay on top of them, because especially with these in different areas that we talked about, it can be stressful, and sometimes some people are not going to be as available to talk as when you want them to. So having different lines of communication and a aggressive follow-up process is going to be key. It takes at least 5 to 8 touch points in order to even convert people, so it's really key to have some type of follow-up system in place.
Yeah, I found that solo practitioners tend to be the most challenging
I
because
agree.
as a solo lawyer or solo practice, you're busy working with clients. That's where you're being paid per hour, and that's to sit there and pick up the phone. So what ends up happening, especially with startup solos, they'll hire like a virtual receptionist who's handling the phones for like 10
Mhm.
other companies. And that virtual receptionist isn't really good or skilled in terms of intake for legal practice. So the best you can do is, if they can't always I guess, handle intake very well, the best you can do as a solo startup is really just make sure you're aggressive in terms of following back on them within the hour, or at least within the same day, but preferably
Yeah.
within a few hours.
Yeah, fully agree with that. Yeah, just having a really good, system to follow up and get these. Another thing too is know how to handle objections. I think, people call, what's the price? Okay, it's going to be $2,500 for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Oh, that's too expensive, and then they just hang up. Well, without you, if you just let them hang up and you don't explain the value, um, then they're just not. They're gonna go away. So I think it's really important too to have some type of way to communicate to them. And I think what also helps to sell too when it comes to legal services is getting them to talk to you, and you walk them through the process of, this is, you answer some of their questions. I know some attorneys probably won't want to do this for free, but in the bankruptcy industry, it is a common practice to offer a free consultation and give a little bit of free advice. And then from there, say, okay, you actually qualify for a Chapter 7. It's going to cost you this much. You can split it up into payments, and then all you need to do is put this much down. So it doesn't look like it's a lot up front, instead of just saying, oh, it's going to be $1,500 on the phone, and then people just hang up. So there has to be a process in order to like qualify, and then also explain the price and the fees so that it doesn't sound like it's that dramatic when it's time to reveal the fees.
Fair. It's a really good sales practice. So moving on from that, let's talk about something that's often debated, at least with those who know a lot about this, but paid search ads versus local service ads. Um, if you don't know, local service ads is another option for legal practices to advertise themselves on Google. Some people love LSAs, other people hate it. Do you want to give some feedback from your perspective before I chime in?
So I think LSAs are a great supplement to what you're doing with PPC or Google Ads. It is not a direct replacement for it, because you can't always control when you're going to show up. What I like about it is the fact that you can have it. You need to have a really strong reputation. So that's number one. So you need to have good reviews. Google's not even going to show you if you don't have good reviews. And then on top of that, it shows like a headshot, and then you appear above the paid search results. So that allows you to get even more of a spotlight. And then you can also take more real estate on the search engine results page. So here's your local service ad or LSA with the amazing 5-star reviews. And then below it is going to be your paid search ads. If you're doing paid search well, then you're going to be able to dominate. And then if you have SEO, then that's, another way to even get more real estate. So I'd say that it's a good supplement, but not a good direct replacement. And then in terms of a great positive of the LSA is that you can also dispute if the leads are not qualified. So you'd need to sign up. You need actually to go through like a verification process and so forth. But it's nothing that I've seen to be too complicated at all. And then from there, once you get approved, you set a budget, and then it's just a matter of having your ads appear. So I definitely recommend it if you can and you have the extra budget. In terms of budget that I've seen, I don't see it being any cheaper than regular Google pay-per-click. So if you're going to do it, what I would do is I wouldn't even take from Google pay-per-click. I would keep the pay-per-click budget and add some more budget for the local service ads. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so number one, I agree with you that LSA should be a secondary option to your typical paid search ads for Google. I don't really like to start out with LSAs in the beginning. I also agree with it does get more volume, but where you get more volume, you're also going to get more trash calls as well. And the reason being is that LSA ads don't offer a lot of context into your business, whereas a landing page would. So, for example, someone who visits a landing page, which is typically associated with a paid search ad, they've done some homework. They've at least spent a couple minutes researching you, reading over the landing page, and maybe looking up your business. Whereas someone who landed on the LSA, there's not a lot to read. It's just a simple, small ad with some reviews, and boom, that's it. And they're going to make a phone call right then and there. This could be great for certain industries, again, where it's like heavily transactional oriented, like, DUI. Whereas something that's more relationship oriented, I think you may hate LSAs. Not always, but that's my gut feeling. So it's something to think about. Again, more volume, but with more volume gets more trash leads. So something to be, something to think about.
Yeah. Something that I also wanted to touch on too was Google Ads versus other lead gen services like Avo or I'm sure you've heard of Avo
Yeah.
and these other like directories where it's like you pay per lead. I wanted to touch on this because I think that a lot of attorneys, they get pitched by all these different lead gen companies. Oh, I'll give you a lead for $10. And then when when someone like you or me goes to pitch, and we're like, well, your average cost per lead is probably going to be anywhere from $100 to $200, and then they start freaking out. what has your experience been? Have you worked with any of these like pay per lead models, or do you have any thoughts on pay per lead models for any attorney that's watching this video? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's been a long time since I did a deep dive into Avo or some of these other PPL campaign
Service.
models.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking very broadly, the first question you want to ask is the lead exclusive, or are you having to compete with several other lawyers?
Most of the time they're not.
Is it?
Yeah, most of the
Okay.
time they share the leads. So basically what happens is when a lead submits a form, there's like 10 other attorneys in your area that are fighting for that lead. So the lead gen company, sure, they might get paid $10 per lead or whatever, and it sounds very attractive, but that lead gen company is actually getting paid $100 a lead from all those 10 other lawyers in your area, and all 10 attorneys are fighting for that one
Yeah.
lead.
So if that's the case, that's a big no for me, and for that reason, I'm out, as they say on Shark Tank. Like it's like Home Advisor for home contractors. Home Advisor loves to tout how they can get cheap leads for home contractors, but what the home contractors don't understand is you're having to compete with three other home contractors. So that's a big no for me. Um, I think it may work for certain industries, so you have to think about that. But at least with Google Ads, while it can be expensive, it's I won't say it's exclusive, because sometimes when the prospective client is talking to you, they could be talking to maybe another lawyer, but it's at least less competition, right? And that's number one. And number two, through the landing page, you can control the messaging of how you portray yourselves. Whereas with something on Avo, it's just maybe a couple paragraphs at most, a photo of your logo, and there's not a lot of context into your business and how you do business. So something to think about.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Just because someone's able to sell leads for cheap does not mean that it's going to be a good quality lead. Another thing with these lead gen services, they also offer, a lot of them tend to offer a way to get like refunded or something if it was like a bad quality lead. So that sounds very attractive versus with Google, you can't, if you're doing LSAs, you can, but if you're just doing regular pay per click, you can't get refunded. So there's just a couple things that you have to, be aware of in terms of like the big differences. But yeah, I agree. The exclusivity is going to be key in making sure that you own it. And typically what I found is a lot of attorneys that have tried these lead gen services that have paid, under $100 per lead don't have the best experiences with them, and they tend to either want to do marketing in-house or hire some expert to manage their own Google ads, so they have full control over what's happening with their campaigns.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I think the last thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly was like how to get reviews. I know that it's a little bit off topic, but we kind of talked about it a little bit in terms of the different niches and how it can be challenging. But what would you say is a great way for attorneys to build up their reviews for especially being in like more of a sensitive industry?
Yeah, so I don't know if I have a magic formula. The advice I give is the same advice I give to all of my clients, regardless of industry. I have a lot of clients in medical, tech as well, or just local based businesses. Number one, I'm a firm believer in multiple touch points. So what that means is that when a client is dealing with you, it's a journey, right? Like there's the initial consult, there's like winning the case or doing whatever work is needed, and then afterwards. So the way I would do it is, number one, I think it's important that the lawyer, him or herself, mention, hey, if you like what we've done, we would appreciate a review. That's number one. Number two, I would have like an automated email campaign sent from the CRM that maybe a week later saying, hey, again, if you like what we did, we'd appreciate a review. And then maybe send one more follow up a month down the road. So that way you're not pestering them. So that's at least 3 touch points right there. Because what often happens is that, like, maybe you get a really happy client and you're like, yeah, I'll definitely give you a review on that first touch point when you're talking to the lawyer or when the client's talking to the lawyer. but life gets in the way, right? The client just forgets they got to pick up the kids, or they got to go on travel or whatever, and they forget to leave a review. So that's where having multiple touch points really helps a lot, because you can sit there and remind them through automation that, hey, we'd appreciate a review. So
Yeah.
I think the if I had to give like a sort of a magic trick, which I don't think is necessarily magic, but just more touch points. And keep in mind, even after 3 touch points, just a lot of people just aren't going to give a review for any number of reasons. So you just kind of have to leave it alone. But I think if you do what I just recommended, that puts you ahead of the curve of, I would say, at least 80% of your competitors, because 80% of your competitors just aren't doing that at all.
Yeah. You got to do it when it's fresh too. You can't wait a month and then try to go back and ask for it, especially if someone's complimenting you or telling you how much you saved their life or whatever. You need to ask for the review then and there, and try to get them to leave it. Something that I've seen with some attorneys, that's interesting is sometimes what they'll do is they'll have like a competition like in their office and have their paralegals try to get them
Oh,
to, yeah, they'll have like a competition with the different paralegals in the office and try to get paralegals to ask all the clientele for reviews. And I guess like every month they give some type of bonus, like if someone leaves a review and they mention the paralegal's name. So I'm not sure if that's like legal, but I've like in the eyes of Google, but I've seen that, and I've seen that work really well. So just I'm dropping it in there, but I don't know if it's even, something that Google really allows.
I I
I know
think it's legal as long as
you can't
the
incentivize people. You can't
yeah,
pay them to leave you a review, but you can pay your staff to ask them to leave a review and then say the name. And then whoever gets, based off of, when they say, so and so helped me, Dara helped me with this, then Dara gets $100 bonus for every review. So I've seen that and it
yeah,
worked really well. So if you're
yeah.
watching it and you want a tip, then, hopefully it was worth staying until the end for this.
That's a good one. It's funny. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.